Hello, my name is Rakai Watson, and this is my random submission for a fully digitalized economy. So, what exactly is e commerce or electronic commerce? So, Britannica describes e commerce as the conducting of business transactions through the means of computer telecommunication networks. So this has been a big topic since it has grown in popularity since the 1990s and 2000s when we first got introduced in e-commerce due to technological advancements. And now we're actually looking into becoming a fully digitalized economy where we actually get rid of non-digital economies such as paper money. But will this actually be effective in stimulating the economy the same way that we've seen traditional forms of economy actually have? So in this presentation, I look into those kind of factors that have been used to stimulate economy through non-digital means and see if digital means actually work for that. So my main methods I use for key factors. First, I use the e-commerce statistics or e-stats. This comes from the U.S. Census Bureau from up to 2022, which goes into the activity, the economical activity of certain types of um, commerce. So I specifically look into non-digital and digital forms of activity to compare and see how non-digital forms compete with digital forms of economy. And then I look into cybersecurity since this is a major risk for many people to go into cybersecurity, to go into e-commerce due to security measures that are needed to go over big transactions such as buying houses, cars, or any other big transactions like that. So this is going to be very important if we actually go into a fully digitalized economy. Then I look into customer satisfaction and accessibility, since we know not all people have access to these type of things, as well as people with disabilities may not have access to certain forms of commerce, especially e-commerce. And customer satisfaction specifically because since we'll be moving to a digital economy, you still need a way to promote customers to return and customer satisfaction through the digital means. So first, this is the eStats Census Bureau activity for e-commerce. We are going to focus on the retail trade, which has 999 or 997.5 billion in activity since 2022. But you actually want to see how this is going to measure up to the traditional or non-digital commerce. So this is from the actual census table, which shows all the different industries of 2022 retail. For non-digital commerce, I actually see that since this is in millions of dollars instead of billions, that means we're seeing $6.916 trillion going into retail through this 2022 alone, which is about 5 trillion larger than the digital commerce that we see for the same year in the same uh, factor. So this just shows that even though we are seeing a rise in digital commerce, we're not seeing as much activity in in those regions as we're seeing for non-digital commerce. So even though it's becoming more popularized, it doesn't mean that we're seeing a lot more activity. Next, this is about cybersecurity. So we looked at something from Hassan et al., which looks into 131 published articles from Science Direct, which look into the issue of cybersecurity for e-commerce. And they see that the main issues are still about security, authentication, and different designs that are being used to actually promote security. So even though this is becoming popularized, as I said, it still has to undergo a lot of security measures and a lot of security development in order to actually create a substantial economy, especially if we were looking for one that's going to be implemented across the United States, and we're going to get rid of non-digital forms of economy entirely. So, since security is still a major factor, it still needs to be further developed in digital economy. It is not ideal at this moment in order to. It's not ideal for this moment to actually implement such drastic changes to the economy. And finally, about customer satisfaction, we used research from Jun et al. Using the AISAS model and clicking operations in order to determine customer satisfaction through digital means of marketing, which is also part of e commerce. And we saw that the clicking operations or the attention that they give to e-commerce is still being stimulated like non-digital commerce, but it's not bringing back customers. So they're not coming back, not having a customer loyalty or anything like that. Furthermore, the accessibility for commerce is actually not great for the disabled and those that are financially disadvantaged, because as we see from All Accessible, which is a foundation focused on bringing more accessibility to these types of economy, they show that 71% of disabled people do not have access to e-commerce and abandon the type of commerce altogether. And we have 23.9 million Americans who do not have access to stable internet, and therefore they cannot um, participate in e-commerce like other people. So just from these factors alone, we see that it is actually very limited the people that can actually participate in e-commerce. So getting rid of non-digital commerce altogether would not be efficient for these people, as well as even though that these people are able to buy from e-commerce, it doesn't mean that they're going to be coming back to those businesses that they're buying from, and that's going to in the end harm businesses that are trying to gain customer loyalty. So with closing thoughts, um, due to the less economic activity compared to non-digital forms of commerce, um, cybersecurity still need to be further developed, and the inaccessibility to to e-commerce for to the disabled and the financially disadvantaged, there is not adequate reason for us to actually implement these drastic changes into our economy at this moment. However, there are people that believe that this is going to be a very near future, such as Actor and Wamba, who believe in a near future of digital commerce through their future directions analysis, and Yuji Koshi and Frank, who actually developed a way of gaining more customer loyalty through their new business model. However, even though these people are working very hard in order to get these types of things for e-commerce, this still does not equate to the multiple factors that are going to impact the way we see economy by completely removing non-digital forms of economy altogether. So in the end, we still have a lot more development needed in this factor in order to actually implement e-commerce and digital forms of economy altogether, and removing non-digital forms of economy would greatly impact the United States. This is my works cited, and thank you.